If I have something that just feels off with mindset or energetic, I got a person I'm calling for that. And I think it's learning over time, being vulnerable and raising your hand for help is the ultimate courage. And
Yeah.
frankly, I have too many people that I have responsibility to and loyalty to that have been trusted or partnered with me and our organization that I can't let my pride or ego go. I'm just going to try to figure this out. I got to get the resource quickly because I have to get back on track as quickly as possible.
Welcome to the Raquel Show. This show is for entrepreneurs who want to play bigger in business and in life. And as many of you guys know, I love bringing people on the show who actually play bigger. And today I've got a very special guest who I have known for, oh my gosh, so many years. And we go way back to the REO foreclosure days. And we've even competed for listings, team members, REO accounts, but she's one that I have never looked at as competition, but more so as how can we always collaborate? And every time I see her, even at events out of state, we always pick up where we left off, even though we're in the same state. I respect the business that she's built over the years and how she's been able to build something with longevity, such a massive business while being a mom, being a wife, a mother of four, her heart, her resilience. I love it all. And in their best year, they sold close to 900 homes. And you're going to want to listen to this amazing powerhouse. So welcome to the show, Carin Nguyen.
That's quite an intro. Thank you so much, friend. I'm really looking forward to this. We always have so much fun. That's a perfect way to say that. Like we just pick right back up, right?
Yeah, I can talk to you forever. And we always do. And I could have written a really long bio about you, but I'm excited for like my community and the people that listen to the show or watching this on YouTube to really get to know, if they haven't heard of Carin Nguyen, to get to know her, because I think she's a dynamic powerhouse in our industry. So we're going to dive right into it. You've been in business for over 10 years, and I've seen you build an REO team, a brokerage, join a brokerage, switch brokerages, expand your team in different locations. How important is it to constantly pivot in the business and be flexible?
Yeah, I'm actually in my 21st year.
Oh, 21st. Okay.
I know I don't look that old, but I just gave all that away. Yeah.
She started when she was 10.
Ladies and gentlemen. Yes, that's correct. That's right. Do the math. And I think it's probably one of the top abilities or traits that are necessary to, number one, survive. But if you are going to thrive, it is looking far ahead at the pivot. Like what is coming next and not having your head down and just being transactional.
Yeah.
That's what's on the forefront.
What has always worked and it's always going to work. Right. And then you wake up and you're like, oh no, it's not working. So is there something that you look at, or you look at data? Like, how do you know when to pivot when you, like you just said, like looking ahead?
Yeah, it can be different factors. It's not always, sometimes data can be a tell, right? I think that's where I got my license in 2003. And so as we started to go through the downturn, I had not been through a downturn and I was pretty early in my career, so I didn't know any different. So I was listening to all the other, we'll call it water cooler talk or language that was going around, which was like, oh no, this is short lived. This is just a blip. It's all going to come back, which we all know now it didn't, right? It just descended even further and further of what we call like the Great Recession. And so I think going through that taught me just to look ahead to see, hey, what are the things that are potential, like a SWOT analysis almost that you're doing in the business. And so it is looking for what are the potential threats that could be coming or changes to the industry. So that can be with data. Do we start to see sales numbers going down, commission, what's happening with that? But then also we see what's happening with some of the disruptors and how are we engaging with that. So I think one of the things that's really been a great asset for our team is looking at people that want to play in the real estate space and come in considered as disruptors and said, hey, how are we going to embrace this? How are we going to partner with these other companies like the Open Doors and Zillow and all of these things that a lot of agents go, oh my gosh, that's a threat. It's us against them. Is that necessarily true? How can we partner? And I think AI is probably right now what we're looking at to say, hey, that's the next. And it's been interesting to hear the dialogue of some agents of what they're thinking and saying about that. And I'm not going to use absolutes. I'm not going to say things like never and always. So I think it's, hey, if this were possible, are we going to be ready for it?
It's really interesting that you say the whole disruption, because I do believe that you've done a really good job, and I've actually got to see it front row where you've partnered where people were like, no way, I'm not going to partner with these people. And your business has always continued to grow. And now you're looking at AI. Where do you see AI taking our industry, or where do you see it being very disruptive?
Yeah, I think that's the part that's most controversial because I hear a lot of agents saying people still want a very human experience. And this is the biggest purchase that people are ever going to make. And so that could be true, right? We might get down the road and real estate agents could play a very big part in the transaction. I think maybe 15 or 20 years ago, somebody that was a financial trader may have thought some of the similar things. And now I use E-Trade, right? And I go online and I'm buying things and I don't ever use somebody for those types of decisions. And I'm actually trading a reasonable amount of money there. So I just think being careful to say, okay, if I thought that were to be true, that I'm always going to be part of it, it's going to look very similar, there's going to be a little bit of iteration, that can be dangerous. So I just want to be ready to say, hey, I don't know if you've heard it. There was a podcast that Ed Milet did not too long ago,
Yeah, I
and it
did.
had, I'm going to mess up his last name. I think it was like Mo Gaudet is how you pronounce his last
Mhm.
name. He talked about AI, people having relationships with AI. And when he first said it, I was like, what a weird concept. And then the more you listen to it, you're going, but there's a lot of things that we do today that before there was the internet, we could never imagine. So I think it's just, again, staying open to what could be possible. And so if I thought that could be a possibility, what are the business decisions? What are the pivots? How am I working with that versus having my blinders up, right? And saying, oh no, this is absolutely not going to happen. And then all of a sudden I get, I guess what we call Netflix, your blockbuster, whatever your
Yeah.
whatever your
Yeah.
is going to be on that.
You say such a good point because it's so true. If we really think about AI, and I did hear that episode, and you think like some people are getting dating advice, relationship advice, therapy through AI today because they can't afford or they don't want to share it with a real therapist. So,
I actually partnered with a company. My husband and I partnered with exactly that to give coaching advice and life advice, or even your own, like for yourself, to type it in. And it's incredible what's possible there. Yeah.
so speaking of like you and your husband, you co-lead this team together, and I've seen you guys grow, and you also have kids in the business now. How do
I
you
do.
manage to separate the personal dynamic, family dynamic from the professional responsibilities, or is there an overlap?
Yeah, I'd be lying. And I think anybody that works with their spouse, that we're like, oh, this is always so perfect. And we just all love working together. It's a beautiful, harmonious sunshine and rainbows. That'd probably be a crock, or they're just not being super honest in that statement because it can be hard, right? Like it can be just like a marriage is work, having a business partner, and then you're taking those things home. It becomes very difficult. It's one of the things that we've really had to work on, and we still haven't mastered the table talk, right? Are we talking about this right now? We're just more aware of it. And I think we can stop each other. But having that boundary of balance can be tough. Now, that being said, I actually met my husband in a work environment. So we worked together. That's actually how we met. And then worked together a few times since then to before we got to this point. And so when we partnered in the real estate team, we basically assessed what didn't go well and how would we plan for that going forward. And I think the biggest things that we had to account for was not having an intersect of one person is holding the other person accountable,
Mm.
because that's not going to work, right? You can't be the coach or the leader per se of the other person. So that's just a no go. And so it had to be clearly defined lanes and where we would see intersection, which would be like finances, financial decisions, some big key level pieces that we'd say, okay, you have the authority to make this decision. I have the authority to make this decision. But for these types of decisions, this is a joint conversation, right? Like we're going to agree to talk to each other before we make that decision. And I think because we have those clearly defined lanes, that's why now, let's see, we've been working together 12 years in the real estate capacity. And that's why I think it works so well now.
And is it the same for your kids that are in the business? How did that all come about? Was it tough or was it hard because it's both of your kids?
Yeah, yeah. Two of the four are two of the oldest of the four kids actually do work in the business. And I'd say actually what we're really good at is like putting the hats on and taking them off. So understanding, okay, if I'm sitting in this role, if I'm the CEO and I'm having a conversation with you, I'm having a conversation with you as the director of operations, and I'm having a conversation with you as the marketing department. So it's not personal, right? And then
How
later
did
that
you
night,
get
we're
your
at
kids
dinner,
to
and
understand that?
I actually am really great at compartmentalizing and like being able to say, I've worked with friends. Some of the best people you work with are like, hey, come work with us. And so I think they've been able to witness me do that. So I don't think it was anything that it was new for them. I think they were already raised in that environment to experience it where they don't bring that in. But
Yeah.
yeah, literally, I was having an argument with my son over text a couple of days ago, and it's getting a little bit snarky. And then we had a meeting actually set for 2 hours later, and both of us came to the meeting like completely fine.
So interesting.
We're all good.
I
It's
love
fine.
it. What has
It's
been a
business.
challenge or a surprise in the family business? What has surprised you, if any,
Um,
or a challenge?
yeah, I think if anything, it's witnessing the out of balance because as I started in the business, I was wildly out of balance. There was no clear boundaries. I didn't really have anybody mentoring me or giving me the guidance to say, hey, you should probably set your personal goals before your business goals. So I
Mhm.
was setting business goals and then I was trying to shove the personal inside of it. So I didn't have good boundaries that I was setting. I was working way too many hours. As real estate agents that we do, we're on the call, we're like to the kids in the back seat, but it's always happening. It's, hey, one more minute, one more call, one more contract. And I think I'm surprised to see they learn that. I'm in much more different balance today, probably because of the seat that I sit in. And just I'm more clear on the priorities than I was when I was younger and just chasing things. I'm
Yeah.
still very driven and chasing it, but you probably understand what I'm saying when I make that statement. So I think it surprises me most to see their work ethic and how much time they're putting in. And that who would have thought that here I'm trying to bring them back into balance to go, hey, yes, as a CEO of the organization, I love it that you're putting in this extra time. And I'm not saying not to put in time, but also draw the boundaries so that you're long term for this role and this organization for a company.
So good. What has been the most rewarding thing of working with your family?
I think to see them living to their potential, to see their talents, to see them really soar their wings, spread their wings and soar. We're definitely not the type of parents that are going to give the easy road. If anything, we're the opposite. Hey, you are the owner's kids, so you have to show it and then some. You really have to prove yourself because you're under a microscope. Everybody's looking at you, and they really shine. They
Yeah.
shine with that. And like my daughter specifically, she doesn't have my same last name. So people don't know as they come into the business that she's our daughter.
Mhm.
And I actually like that. They're always impressed with her, but they don't actually know because there is not this like favoritism or anything that happens, but they're
Anything, no.
constantly complimenting both of them in their roles of what they do in the company.
I'm so glad that you brought that up because I think a lot of people can relate that are listening to the show. Even for us in sports, when Brad coaches them and is actually their coach, he's probably a lot harder on our own kids than he is with all the other players because they are under a microscope.
Yes. And sometimes we have to rein that in too, right? Where it's
Yeah.
like, gosh, maybe I didn't. Do you need to be that hard on me? So
Yeah.
it's don't be extra hard, but like hard enough that you do just have a little bit more that you got to prove here.
Correct, correct. So in today's climate, as you're talking about this, is there something that you hope for the family to do? What's your long-term vision? Do you hope that they take it over? And is there a concept of, I'm sure, like legacy and what that kind of looks like?
Yeah, I think I've learned to be less attached. If they wanted to take it over and
Yep.
run with that, I think that would be great. I'd be thrilled with that. But I don't want them to feel the pressure of ever having, if this is not what I want to do, because being in the marketing seat, which is our son, and being in the operation seat, it's not the same as being the owner.
Yeah.
So I don't want them to feel like, oh, it's expected. I have to do that.
Hmm.
So I think it would be great if they wanted to do it, but I'm unattached if they choose to go a different route. I don't want them to feel that pressure and do something just because they think it's expected of them. I want them to want it and fight for it, to say, basically pull it away from me. Hey, we're
Yep.
ready to do this.
Get in the driver's seat. Hmm.
Yeah. And hop in the driver's seat and not me go, hey, I need you to get in the driver's seat. It's time to drive.
Yeah.
And if they
You know
jump
what?
in, they're great.
One of the things that I love about you is your leadership. What do you think it takes in today's climate to be a great leader? We know this industry is big and there's very few, I would say, leaders or people that actually lead teams.
Yeah. I think the thing probably where I've grown the most actually as a leader and as a person is my ability to listen and really listen. I'm a very high D, like high driver. Hey, here's what we got to do. And the young Corinne came in, guns ablazing. People that work for me, I'm so sorry for those like early people that were my employees
I say the same thing.
because I was just running and gunning. And it wasn't anything like I had personally against them. It was just me, right? Like that push. And today I'm just a lot more attuned, I think, to the people. And so I can read usually pretty well when something's off. If they say something, I'm listening for kind of the undertones of what's really being said or what's not being said, and
Mhm.
can ask really good questions. And I think what that does is it allows the people that I lead to feel seen and heard, and then they're secure. And
Yeah.
then if they feel that security, there's this like level of trust when something isn't going as well, that they feel that open door and the ability to have a conversation so that I know where I stand with them and where they stand with me. And it's not the surprise
Yeah.
that happened in my early times where it's, I'm out of here. You're like, wait, what? And I think it is because you are sharing those moments on both sides of being vulnerable,
Mhm.
that you want to do it for each other.
Yeah.
You want to do it for the mission and for all the other people on the team, but you're also, there's like this push for each other. And it's not just about making the next dollar or selling the next house. It's
Yeah.
just about the relationships and growing it together.
Yeah. What do you think your biggest leadership lesson as you look back has been?
Probably my written word, slowing down on my written word, because it's so funny. When I teach classes, I love to use this. We don't have it written out, but if everybody wrote the saying, a woman without her man is nothing. Okay. A woman without her man is nothing. And I ask a guy in my class to read that, and they go, a woman without her man is nothing. I go, what's that mean? And they're like, do I have to say it? And I go, yeah. And they're like, that a man needs a woman, or that a woman needs a man, and that they're nothing without him. And I go, okay, cool. Can I read it to you? And they're like, sure. Of course, I set them up. And I'm like, a woman without her, man is nothing. Right. So hopefully everybody heard what I said through that, which is a complete opposite of the
Opposite.
first phrase. So I think it's understanding that written word. I might say it in a certain tonality,
Mhm.
but I have to be very conscientious of how it's received. And if I'm not, I'm sending something and I think nothing of it. Okay, cool. I just gave this directive. And on the other end of the line, I didn't put a please or a thank you. We have to have these extra level of politeness and pleasantries that happen in the written word. And it's caused so much over time for me to go back and clean up some of that, because I'm just like, hey, I'm just fired. We're moving fast. Or I need to set the expectation of, hey, when I respond this way, it's just because it's
Yeah.
knowing who I'm communicating with and communicating appropriately, and not saying, this is who I am, you have to adapt to it. I think it's understanding the most flexible people, the most flexible leaders are the ones that have the most influence. Those that are willing to have flexibility and adapt have the greatest amount of influence. And at the end of the day, that's how you're leading people. That's how you move the needle. That's how you move mountains, is through your influence. If you don't have influence, what are you really doing? You're not moving anything.
That, Corinne, is such gold. And I love how you actually laid all of that out. And I think that is so true. And I couldn't agree with you more. So I know that the broker owners that are listening to this or the people that are leading teams are like, wait, let me just rewind that because the way she laid it out was like amazing. What do you think when it comes to days where you've got challenges as an owner and you've been in this business for a long time? Sometimes you got team challenges, sometimes you got support challenges, sometimes somebody quits. How do you continue to keep going and push through all of those? Because these are like the unsexy things that I think don't ever like always get talked about.
Yes. Yeah. I think there's a couple of things with that. It's also knowing what works for me. There's a list of strategies
Yeah.
of, there's some days things are heavy. The
Yeah.
week that we just had was heavy, or the day before was just heavy. And I can say the line like, hey, just have a 5-second funeral, move on. But you're going, well, that's great, but I didn't wake up that way today. That's not how I feel. So I
Mhm.
think it's, I know what some of my strategies are for me personally of
Mhm.
what I need to do to get back on track. So I think step one is having the awareness to go, oh, something's off. And number two is, okay, now which one of the strategies am I pulling out today? Is it like, oh, I've fallen off on my Audible, or you know what, when I listen to this particular person, right, like this speaker, I can get turned up. I better put that on as I get ready this morning because I need to start putting things basically in here, right? Because what I'm
Brain
focusing
food.
on,
Yeah.
yeah, the brain food, right? Because usually when I'm getting out of alignment, it's because of what I'm focusing on. That whole like what we focus is what we feel. So if I start to focus on all the things that have gone wrong, I'm going to see more of that. And I'm frankly going to feel like shit. So I have to start focusing on what are my gratitudes? What am I thankful for? What are the wins? Like that can be, that's probably one of my biggest challenges, right? Because I want these giant wins, but I've learned about myself, I have to just measure the smaller wins. And
Yeah.
then frankly, it's having like several coaches. I
Yeah.
have go-to people, right? I say, hey, if I need some help on strategy, I'm just not seeing something, I call this coach. If I
Mhm.
have something that just feels off with mindset or energetic, I got a person I'm calling for that. And I think it's learning over time, being vulnerable and raising your hand for help is the ultimate courage. And
Yeah.
frankly, I have too many people that I have responsibility to and loyalty to that have been trusted or partnered with me and our organization that I can't let my pride or ego go. I'm just going to try to figure this out. I got to get the resource quickly because I have to get back on track as quickly as
Yeah.
possible.
That is so good. What is the biggest challenge that you would say to teams, broker owners, or agents growing their business today that you have dealt with in the past that you wish you would have known that it was coming when you were building?
I think thinking that we were for everybody,
Mm,
thinking that we needed to be everybody's cup of tea. And if we're not, that there's something wrong with us. Oh my gosh, they left us, or vice versa, right? We chose not to partner with them and they're going, oh, there's something wrong with me. It's just understanding how important it is to have that alignment because
mhm.
that's how you're going to get far together instead of not so far and go, we're not actually really aligned on maybe the core values, right? Here's the things that actually matter the most. A lot of times we want to talk about strategy and we give you the leads and we do all of these things, but it is looking at a peek behind the curtain to say, hey, are we aligned on some of the top values? Because if there's
Yeah.
not alignment there, we're not going to go very far.
Yeah.
And every time we lose people, that's hard. It's hard
Mhm.
on the organization. It's hard on me personally. And I think, frankly, me getting out of the recruiting seat was also a really good move because I see the like everybody, you can do it. Who am I to tell you you're not going to do it? And so I'm bringing in everybody. Hey, let's go. And somebody else is going. We probably knew that they weren't going to fit here. And I'm like, yeah, but I saw this glimmer of hope, right? Like I
Yeah.
believed in them. I thought they could do it. And I think it's just realizing you don't have to be for everybody and being very clear of what the mission and who aligns with that mission are.
Has that changed over time? Has your core values changed over time? Because often see with like young leaders that are building teams, it's let's just bring everybody. And then eventually they get a couple punches and they're like, okay, that can't work anymore. That's not the strategy.
Yeah, if anything, it's this huge pendulum, right? Like, okay, we're gonna bring this. Never mind, we're gonna do this complete opposite. And it's of course like anything, it's finding the balance, like what's the middle. I think I made the mistake of asking our team members, hey, let's collectively create the core values. And why I think that was a mistake is that those weren't necessarily all of my core values. And so either we recruited more to those core values or we lost some of those people. That wasn't who I was in alignment as the leader, right? So I'm not attracting the things that are my core values to keep people in the organization. So to answer the question, yes, we did change it. And it was because more so I wanted to feel collaborative, but that wasn't something really to collaborate on. It needed to
Yeah.
be, hey, what are my husband and I's core values? And let's make sure all the people that we're bringing in and attracting are in alignment with those core values.
I'm
And then the other piece of it is just swinging the pendulum because I think we had some people that we felt like we got burned a little bit. And so then we went the other way of, okay, we want to be in business with great hearted people, right? Like specifically, that was in the mission statement. And so then we attracted a lot of great hearted people, but then we were missing this piece of, okay, great hearted people, but they're also driven. Because you can have
mm,
great hearted people, but I'm also very driven. So if you're doing the philanthropy and like all the things, but then you're just like ho hum about the rest. Now we're also off because I'm going to go, hey, let's go. We're trying to go do this. Let's accomplish this mission and go help all of these other people. So we, let's have the money so we can be more philanthropic. And so that was a miss. And I think that was part of swinging the pendulum. So I
Yeah.
think over time we realized, oh, okay, it needs to be this and this. It can't just be pursuing the results or just great hearted. It's like the combination of both of
All of
those
the above.
things.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought that up. And I'm guilty of that too. There was a time, even like not just core values, where it was like, oh, what do you think our core values should be? And we all came up with our own mission statement. And it also came down to like procedures, like how should we do this? If this didn't work for this agent, they left us, like, how do we adjust it? And then you start to clearly like later on go, that wasn't probably the right move because it still irritates you at the end. No.
Yes,
And
that's
I
part of
and
the
I
journey,
think
right?
that's so important for our team leaders to hear right now, or people that are running companies today, is sometimes we want to be collaborative. And I think there's a time and place for it, but you also have to live with it and you also carry the risk and the financial responsibilities of the company. So great-hearted people, but don't make money or perform could lead to a company that's not making money and go bankrupt.
And there's a responsibility, right? So I think it's seen that there is, I think to add to that, because everybody that's running a business, which are the people in this listening to this podcast,
Right.
right? You have to see the business as a person.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, it's probably the most important person because that person, when you're making the best decisions for the business, it's impacting all of the people inside of it. And so it's not making a single decision for a person, it's running it through that filter. Because if you run it through that filter, everybody in your business is going to be okay.
Yeah.
Now, there might be one person that's not okay, but it's got to be for the greater than it is for the one or two.
Yeah. It'll be off of alignment, but it'll be one versus trying to collaborate on a lot of off pieces.
But it's really hard because your business isn't a person. We tend to
Yeah.
make personal, emotional decisions
Yeah.
instead of running it through the filter of, hey, I have to do what's
As
best. And for me personally, it felt like, am I being greedy to do that? And I had to reframe it to go, no, actually, I'm not. That's a seat I have to sit in and
Mhm.
make sure that everybody else is running it through that filter, because that's why people choose to be in business with us. And that's what gives us the foundation and the credibility and the longevity, the security, right, for all of the
Right.
people that are here with us.
Yeah. I
Not
always
easy
love
to
your
do though.
No, it's definitely not easy to do. And I'm glad that you brought up in this conversation, because I don't think a lot of people think about that until after the fact or a few years, and they can look back and they go, this is where we actually made the mistake. I love your drive, and I love how you constantly are always pursuing excellence. What's one habit that you've sustained in your life that has contributed to your success?
Gosh, I think it's a culmination of so many different habits. But if I had to dial it in, I think it's understanding I have to be investing in myself always. So it's like I'm always investing in myself, because if I'm not growing, I really believe that if you're not growing, you're not dying, you're complacent, you're not staying excited. And so, again, I have to be growing and I have to be investing in myself to get that new idea, that new knowledge, that different perspective, so that I am expanding. And
Hmm.
I think that's what's keeping me successful and relevant for our people, for my family, and frankly, even for myself, that I get excited to continue to do what I do. I think it's just understanding the importance to invest in myself personally and my
Yeah.
development and growth.
Yeah. I love it. What's next for Corinne? What are you most excited about that you're working on?
Yeah, we just launched a Denver team. So we're only a couple of days in on that, which we're really excited about. Everything that we've built in our company is very much to scale because, like you mentioned, I
Mhm.
sold 900 homes before I really had a full blown team. I had hired administrative help, but everything we do, we put it through the lens of big scalability. And
Mhm.
so it's been really fun to get us launched because we've been more than ready. So I think that'll be the first of many new locations for us. But we have three here in Metro Phoenix, in the West Valley, the Southeast, and North Scottsdale, and now in Denver.
So exciting.
Excited to launch.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Why Denver? Is that where you guys are going to retire?
No,
Or you
no, it
followed
is
a
a beautiful
person?
place, actually.
Yeah.
No, but that is actually one of the worst reasons to expand somewhere, is because you like to vacation there, right? Or you're trying to go there. It needs to make opportunity sense. And frankly, we were given a lead source
Mhm.
there that was a great lead source. And so a great recruiting magnet. We're very familiar with it. And we
Mhm.
were already had all of the other operational pieces in place. So it made sense. It was too hard to say no to that.
So good. And where can people connect with you?
Yeah, you can connect with me either in social. My name is hard to spell, but the good news of that is there's only one of me, as far as I know. So it's Carin Nguyen. It's spelled like Carin Nguyen, but it's spelled Carin Nguyen, CARINNGUYEN. So that's my handle on Instagram, Facebook. You can Google me. You can email me, Carin@azhomesold.com. You can call
Yeah.
me.
And
My
we will
number's on there
also
too.
we'll also put it in the show notes so that you guys can all tag her or send her a DM on some of the nuggets that you guys have learned from today's episode. And as we wrap up, there's always one question that I ask every single guest on the show is what does Corinne do to play bigger in business or in life?
I surround myself with people that are thinking bigger because they stretch me. Always, I can't be the biggest thinking person in the room. Always around people that are doing more than I am.
Well, my friend, I want to say thank you so much for being on our show. I always love seeing you grow, and I'm always excited to see you continue to play bigger, my friend.
Thank you for the opportunity. I love you, friend.